Welcome to the latest edition of Anyone, Anywhere, Anytime with me, Marshan Kenny. Well, today's interview is going to be with a Super Bowl champion and Southern Miss Hall of Famer, one of the greatest linebackers in the history of Southern Miss football, Michael Boley. And it's less than 3 weeks until we all meet up again at The Rock for that September 2nd kickoff. And I know everybody's really excited to meet up again. And I'm going to get into some of your excitement in this next segment that we call Four and Out. Well, this week on Facebook and Twitter, I asked the Southern Miss Nation, what are you most excited about regarding the 2023 football season? Is it tailgating? Is it the games? Is it Eagle Walk, et cetera, et cetera? I had a lot of good answers, but I can only get to 4 of them because that's the name of the segment, Four and Out. First up from Twitter, Mike Lacey, who's a former anchor for WLOX, ABC, CBS TV down in Biloxi. Well, he's retired now, so he's got time to go to games even more and be loud. He said, I'm looking forward to going to a game for the first time since retirement. Now I don't have to worry about ruining my voice. And yeah, you had to keep that voice kind of fresh for TV, but now you don't have to worry about it. So be loud and proud, Mike at The Rock. Next up, Larry Bellapini, who many of you know as Luscious. Yeah, Luscious said, tailgating in the games. He kept it real short and sweet right there. Thanks, Luscious. Next up, Margie Jepson said, I'm most looking forward to the quarterback position, Will Hall's offense, watching Frank Gore Jr. and the other backs and wideouts shock the world. Offense to the top. Great words right there, Margie. And finally, Stephen Mitchell said, seeing my Eagles play in Tallahassee again. I was there the last time they played. Now I have a daughter at Florida State. To the top. Great comments right there, everyone, and please keep them coming in. Well, today's interview is with a guy I call the most complete linebacker in Southern Miss football history. So get ready for a fun behind-the-scenes interview with Michael Boley. Well, today's interview is with the Super Bowl champion and one of the greatest nasty bunch members in the history of Southern Miss football. So with all that said, I'm bringing you the one and only Michael Boley. And how are you doing today, Mike?
Man, I'm doing good, man. How are you?
I'm doing really well, man. It's awesome to have you on, fellow nasty bunch guy. And your accolades are through the roof. I mean, you were 3-time first-team All-Conference USA performer, Conference USA Defensive Player of the Year your senior year, All-American, and obviously a Super Bowl champ. Looking back at those accolades, how does that make you feel, Mike?
Man, it feels good. Just oh man, like just mentioning all that stuff, it kind of, years later, it kind of puts things in perspective. Like, wow, like I did all that,
Well, you were fun to watch too. I mean, obviously, when I was done, I love watching the defenders, and I've always said the most complete linebacker in Southern Miss history is Michael Boley. You could cover receivers, cover running backs. Blitzing, you were a nightmare. You were almost unblockable when you were blitzing. Between the tackles, you could handle the run. I mean, how did you become just this complete linebacker?
Oh man, you know what? I tell people all the time, like I owe a big part of that to Zaire Houston. So my freshman year when I got moved to linebacker, I'm not gonna lie, I was ready to quit. I was because I had never played that position before, so I was like, I had my bags packed and I was ready to go home, and I was how van is set up, so with the suites, and so next door was I remember Zaid and Chris Langston was my suite mates, and I remember Zaid kind of sat me down one day and was like, he's like, man, just look at me. He was just talking about himself. He's like, I'm not the biggest, I'm not the fastest, I'm not the strongest. He's like, but I'm smart. He said, I've played so many different positions on this defense since I've been here. He said, so I've learned a lot. And he said, that's what kind of helped him get his opportunity to be on the field and stay on the field. And I was like, young kid in my mind, I'm like, yeah, whatever. And so I was just like, kind of, you know what, I'll give it a shot. And so just kind of started, learning, just what to do with my position. And, once I kind of got that in my mind, was just kind of branch out, kind of learning other positions, kind of learning what to do. But also, playing corner, playing safety when I was younger, that kind of helped me, in a coverage aspect. And so just kind of using that kind of thing. Those things kind of helped me complete my game, so to speak.
Wow, interesting story right there. Because yeah, you really kind of had to learn the linebacker position when you came to Southern Miss. From 96 to 99, you're an all-star at Elkmont High, playing every position I saw except linebacker, which is crazy. But that's how it was. All-state performer, man. But let's talk a little bit about those high school days and growing up there.
Man, high school was man, it was fun times. I actually I moved to Elmont like kind of after football season in 8th grade. So high school was my first year in Elmont, and it was like, it was fun. Like I was, because before that it had been a couple of years since I played with my brother because he was a year older than me, and so now that we were back on the same field together, it was like, man, like I'm playing high school ball, but I was just out having fun. Like I was like, I love the offense. I'm gonna full disclaimer, I hated defense. I'm not gonna lie, I hated it. Even when they moved me to linebacker, I just didn't like defense. I'm like, I'm here. Went to a small school and had to play both ways, but like I'm like, you know what? I'm just doing it just because I can. But it was some good times, man. Just being there, and I just talked to some old high school buddies recently, and man, it was just reliving the old days.
Heck yeah, man. What good times, what good memories there. And it took you to an opportunity to play football at Southern Miss. How'd you wind up at Southern Miss? And just talk about that recruiting process getting there. I know you talked about it a little bit when you were there with Zaid.
Well, to be honest, I only had 2 offers. I had 2 offers out of high school. It was either Southern Miss or Alabama A&M. Alabama A&M wanted me to come in, and I still remember his name, Coach Rock. Coach Rock was telling me, he was like, man, you can come in and start a receiver as a freshman. And I'm like, oh man, like hey, I want that ball in my hand. And I remember Tyrone came, and I remember coming into the house, and he and my dad talking, and I'm sitting and listening to them, and then come to find out, so both Tyrone and Derek were cousins on my dad's side of the family. And so I just remember, talking to Coach Nix, and, him just talking to me about, the Southern Miss, that family atmosphere. And, he talked about, what our team, what the Nasty Bunch and that team stood for. And so, for me, it was kind of an opportunity to get away from home and branch out. Obviously, I knew Derek from when I was younger, so that kind of helped as well. So,
And I've heard the name Tyrone Nix so many times on this show. I mean, he made an impact on my life when I first started at Southern Miss, learning to be a middle linebacker. How was that personally being coached by defensive coordinator Tyrone Nix during your career?
I'm not gonna lie, at first it was horrible. So he was on me hard. So like once they made the decision, like, all right, I'm gonna be at linebacker. They weren't gonna let me go play offense. They're gonna keep me a linebacker. Oh man, he used to beat me on me every day. It was always something. Oh, you're not doing this. You're not doing that. And he was one of my toughest critics. I remember him telling me like my freshman year, redshirt for me, you're never going to play for this defense because you're not doing this, and you're not doing that. And then I got in some trouble off the field, and I'm just like, man, like I'm just here. And first scrimmage of going into my redshirt sophomore year, our first big scrimmage of the spring, I did pretty well. I didn't really think that I'd done well. I just, I'm just out there playing ball. And so apparently I did well. And how we lined up the stretch, starters, second string, and so forth. And so I'm a backup, and I just remember him coming to me. He comes up, and he's like, you know what? He's like, you surprised me. I'm like, what are you talking about? He was like, you actually had a pretty good scrimmage. I was like, oh, all right, appreciate it. He's like, come on up to the front, you're starting. I was like, what? And so, but no, he was a big help, man. It was once I actually, I was thrust in there and, starting week in and week out, man, it was a joy, man, just to see that fire and intensity that he brought, to us, every week. That was good.
Heck yeah. And I like to ask some of the guests on here, transition from high school to college. Well, do you remember maybe some of your biggest initiation moments in the college football? Like, okay, here I am.
Oh man. You know
Maybe a
what?
game or a play or a big hit.
Moment to me, I just remember in my freshman year, I was just on special teams, but I just remember we were playing in Alabama, and I'm seeing these. You know, we weren't a big team, so Alabama just overall had bigger players than we had at every position. I'm sitting there like, all right, these guys would be like, all right, this is it. This is some real D1 football right here. We always played them early in the year anyway. And so that was crazy to me. But I'd say the Illinois game, like my first year starting, it was like my big wake up call. Like, this is not a Conference USA opponent. This is a big time opponent. We came in and they came to us. Like I said, we came out and we showed out. So that was kind of like one of those big, like, okay, I'm here moments.
Yeah, your freshman year, y'all beat a P5 school in Oklahoma State at the Rock, which was an awesome year after you beat going to beat Illinois at the Rock. And talk about that Illinois game, and then you had a great game. Defense was showing out. Derek Nix in that game, man, he put on a memorable performance. Do you remember that? And then talk about even going against him in practice.
Him coming back from his medical problems, and man, you can just see that Southern Miss humidity is. Whew, it's brutal, especially that early in the year. And so just to see him battle through that, I mean, I remember the lineman helping him off the field after, making good runs and touchdowns. And I was like, man, this dude he's giving us everything he's got. Like, you can't ask for nothing better than that. You know what I mean? And so that was big, just to see him battle through all the adversity that he had been through and then come out and perform the way he did. That was awesome.
Oh, heck yeah, man. Some big wins early on in your career. And it was one game, too, I want to talk about. It was actually in your freshman year. The score was 3-0. Do you remember that? Those kind of defensive slugfest and what those are like?
Oh, man, I just remember seeing, it was a lot of games like that where it's like, you're looking at the score and it's like, in my mind going into college, you would think, these are going to be some high-scoring games and this, that, and other. But like you said early on, you're seeing our defense was, it didn't matter what our offense did. We struggled a bit early on with turnovers, but it never seemed to phase the defense. We went out and we're like, oh, well, whatever. It's kind of looked at it like, it's just another opportunity for us to be on the field. It wasn't like them turning the ball over affected what we did or our mindset.
And getting back to your sophomore year too, right there, another game. You're playing the Houston Bowl, and you will get in the NFL career, which is absolutely incredible. Y'all want to play in the Houston Bowl, Reliance Stadium, big NFL arena. I mean, how's that for a college guy going to the NFL arena and playing a bowl game? I mean, I know a lot of guys are talking about that was a special moment.
I was, man. It's one thing to go into a college stadium, but then when you realize, man, we're in a big league stadium. This is what obviously, we're playing ball at that level. This is where we all dream to be. We all want to be on this stage and this kind of this kind of stadium, this kind of atmosphere. And man, it was a dream come true.
Yeah, absolute dream come true for you. And then you're making dreams come true pretty early. Your first team All Conference USA after your sophomore year. And good bonds are being built. You said Derek Nix, Zaid Houston, some names already throw out there. And a lot of that was formed in the athletic dorm, Van Hall. So how was it living at Van Hall? Because, it was special for me. It was like a fraternity, man. It was special. How was it for you? And any Van Hall moments?
Van Hall, I can't go into too many stories, but just know that Van Hall is one of the places that it's going to go down in history. You can't mention Southern Miss football without bringing up Van Hall. When I first got there, we were building a new facility actually, and so the coaches' offices were on the first floor, and so. But no, it was great, man. Just to be around the guys that the team, being in that locker room, and just carrying that brotherhood just with us day in and day out. Always being around each other, always doing stuff together. Man, people always ask if you can go back and do one thing over again. I'm like, man, I go right back to the same college, do all the same things over and over, just because it was such a special time.
Oh, yeah. And speaking of a special time with you guys, I mean, the nasty bunch we had right then was just special. And your middle linebacker right there was Rod Davis, and you there. I mean, to me, and I'll say this on air, the most dangerous linebacker duo was Michael Boley, Rod Davis in Southern Miss history. How is that teaming up with Rod, knowing y'all are bringing the funk a lot?
It was great. So, I was, obviously, so my true freshman year was Rod's redshirt freshman year. So, he being a year ahead of me, and it was like, dude, like, this man's coming in as a freshman. He's out here balling, you know what I mean? And so, like, when I finally got a chance to play with him and, like, just to see what he was capable of on the field, like, making plays. And, he honestly, like, just playing beside him helped make my job a little easier.
Yeah, absolutely. But what a dangerous duo you all were. And any other moments maybe from around that junior year besides the TCU game? Getting to that one. But any other moments besides that big night at the Rock?
Oh man, plenty of nights, man. I remember just we had a stretch of games where just like it was like nobody counted on us, and I remember Tyrone coming into those meetings and he's always they don't give us a chance, and they're counting us out on this one, man. And it was just we're coming in week out and we're putting in the work and making everybody know like who we are. Oh, you know what? I remember we were playing Louisville, and I remember I don't know if my sophomore or my junior year. I just remember Dave Ragone was the quarterback, and I remember him saying that he had this article in the paper. I guess they interviewed him, and they asked him about sliding, and he said if I wanted to slide, I would have played baseball. And oh man, I remember Tyrone took that personal. He came with the meeting and he's cussing and he's mad at us like we did it. I'm like, look, we didn't say it. But I just remember like him telling us, if he don't want to slide, he was like, we're gonna make him slide. And so by the third quarter, whenever he scrambled, he was sliding us because we were putting hits on him. So yeah, I remember that was a big moment.
Oh yeah, you'll put a lot of hits on a lot of people. Anybody watching this, head over to YouTube and look at the channels with Mike Boley, Rod Davis laying the wood back then. But thanks for saving the TCU game, because I do want to talk about that one in particular.
Oh, yeah.
Junior year, still to me the biggest night at the Rock that's ever happened. I mean, goalpost came down, top 10 TCU Conference USA Championship on the line, ESPN primetime Thursday night. The build up to that and that night for you in particular, what was that like?
Man, it was huge. To that point, we had never played a team ranked that high. If it was a team that was ranked, it was like in the 20s, 23, 24, maybe 25. But to play a team that was ranked that high and was, in BCS consideration, man, that was big for us. That's like, we took that as a challenge. Like, they think they're about to come into the Rock and, and show out on national TV. Like, this is our time to shine. This is our stage. And so, man, we went out and, I mean, as you say, like we went out and shoot, we kicked butt that night, man. And each phase actually, offense, defense, special teams, like everybody showed up and we made it a good game.
Yeah, and it's not every day the goalposts come down at the Rock. I mean, did you witness them when they were coming down?
I remember that, man. That was a special moment. Like you said, I had never been a part of anything like that. So.
Yeah, what an amazing night, man. I watched that game, replays, highlights 50 times by now. So we set up going to Liberty Bowl, which was a gold standard for Southern Miss back then. You're having a first-team All-Conference USA season, 151 tackles. I mean, geez, man, you're tearing it up. So how was Liberty Bowl week and getting to the Liberty Bowl game that season?
Liberty Bowl week was fun. We actually got a little break to go home, kind of – recharge the batteries a little bit before we went up there. But, we got there, like, it was all business on the field, just hanging out with guys off the field, going down to Beale Street, hanging out with the guys, during the week, we're not at practice. But it was a fun week. Obviously, we didn't get the outcome we wanted in the game, but it was definitely a good game for us.
Yeah, I mean, didn't get the win, but made the gold standard for Southern Miss back then, the Liberty Bowl. And I mean, Utah's a really good team. So it was still what a team you guys had, conference champs and what have you. So how you feeling about your career at this point after your junior year? I mean, you don't have to even share any spotlight, man. You are one of the premier linebackers in America now. Rod's not there, so it's not the duo. It's Michael Boley. How's that feel going to senior year?
Man, actually, I not many people know this, but I actually considered leaving after my junior year.
You had the talent. You had the talent.
Yeah, I considered it, and I was like, I wasn't comfortable with the draft grade they gave you, so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna come back for my senior year. And I actually, because I remember actually Tyrone called me in his office and asked me because I filed to see what kind of grade they would give me. He's like, "Are you staying?" He was like, I need you for another year. But yeah, so I came back, and I think that was a great decision for me to come back from senior year. Learn some more, develop some more. So.
And you immediately knew it was a great decision. You opened up your senior year in 2004 at Nebraska. They hadn't lost but 7 non-conference games in 15, 16 years, and opened up the season against the Big Red back when Nebraska was Nebraska.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about that moment, pulling off that win. I think you had 20 tackles in that game too, Mike. Yeah, Talk about that day. That was massive.
We're so locked in. We just nothing go wrong for us. I think we forced like 7 turnovers in that game.
Nothing but turnovers.
Every time I turn around, it's like we got an interception here, a fumble here, and it's like, no, there's nothing they can do with us now. But that was like you said, like Nebraska was, they were one of those top tier teams for decades. So to actually go in there and come out there with a win, man, it was huge.
Yeah, like I said, only Nebraska's 8th home loss in a non-conference game in 16 years or so. So that was a huge win for Southern Miss walking off that field. And it was on ABC. That was a big old deal, man. Everybody saw it. So your senior year, too, I mean, you're one of the premier linebackers in America, not just Conference USA, man. What's some other senior year moments you might remember?
Oh, man, senior year moments.
Just playing at the Rock in general.
Man, there's too many to count, but I will say that the bowl game down at the New Orleans Bowl, just for the way that game went, and then the way the game ended, to come out of there with a win, and to see like our fans show up and show out, and just the support they gave me at the end of that game, man, like it meant a lot to me. So that was huge.
Yeah, I mean, you meant a lot to them. I mean, like I said earlier, I'm not too proud to say the most complete linebacker in Southern Miss history. Cover receivers, blitz better than anybody on the field. I mean, play between the tackles. You can do it all, Mike. And it led you your senior year with the New Orleans Bowl win, obviously, but getting the Connerly Trophy, best Mississippi player, Conference USA Defensive Player of the Year, All-American. I mean, just all those awards, and what a great way to end an unbelievable career. How'd that feel when all these awards started rolling in too? I mean, the big ones. These aren't just the average awards. These are the big ones.
It felt good. Obviously, like a few years prior, I'd seen Rod get that, that Connerly Trophy down in Mississippi. So I was like, that kind of put me like, you know what, defensive players, we can be MVPs, And so, just, I'm not gonna lie. So, like you mentioned earlier, all conference after my redshirt sophomore year, I had no clue. I had no clue that I was even in the running that year. I was just playing. I was just happy to actually be on the field. And so I was out there and I was just playing ball. So I remember when Coach came to me, it was like, he's like, "You made first team." I'm like, "First team what? Like, what are you talking about?" He's like, "First team all conference." I was like, "What is that?" I mean, just because it just didn't even click in my mind like that was like something that I was playing for. And so, but even after that, junior year, senior year, getting those accolades, it kind of put in my mind like, you know what? Maybe I can do this. You know what I mean? Like this is something that, I can do, and I can do at a high level.
Oh, absolutely. One of the best defenders in Southern Miss history by far. And another cool thing happened to you after your senior year at Southern Miss while you're getting draft ready. Elkmont High School retires your jersey, another accolade. How'd that feel? The roots, man, where you came from, retiring the jersey. How was that?
Man, it was great, man. Just to to even be just like you said, like stuff like that. Like when we were younger, like it just doesn't even compute. Like I wasn't even thinking like my jersey's gonna be retired one day. And so when they called me and told me that that's something they wanted to do, I was just like, wow. And I remember we had a guy. He was going into his senior year, and he actually he wanted to wear my number for his senior year. And so even though they retired my jersey, I said he can still wear it for his senior year. And man, that was for me from a small town like that where everybody knows everybody, like that was huge. And just to see to go back there for that. And I remember going to the gym, and the gym is packed like like it's the last game of the year, and I'm like, man, like this is kind of nice. So that was a great moment for me.
Oh, it had to be awesome, man. You're the pride of Elkmont, so forever retired with the jersey there. Like I said, getting ready for the NFL draft, and your talent is through the roof, so it's obviously going to get drafted. You end up going in the 5th round of the Atlanta Falcons, which I thought was a steal. The Boley should be like 3rd, 2nd round with all your talent. And but how'd that make you feel, man? Those NFL dreams coming to reality.
Oh man, you know what? So I'm gonna tell. I ain't gonna tell the whole story. I'm gonna tell you part of the story. So I was actually upset when I got drafted. So and it wasn't the fact that I got drafted, it was just the timing of when I got drafted. So I had, just from talking to my agent, I had hopes of being drafted on the first day, because back then it was rounds 1, 2, and 3 on the first day. And so that's kind of where my agent told me I was going to get drafted. And I just remember I was sitting there and I literally watched the entire first day. And I'll never forget, I'm sitting there and I'm watching. I remember watching the draft, and it goes with the last pick in the 3rd round. The Denver Broncos select Maurice Claret. And I was like, and I just remember because I was sitting with my family, I look at my mom and I'm like, I might not get drafted. That was my thought. I'm like, a guy who hadn't played ball in 2 years just got drafted before me. And I was just like, for me, like it was kind of disheartening at the time, because I was just like, dang, I might not make it. And I remember I went out that night and went out with some friends, and I'm not gonna lie, I got hammered. I got drunk. Just to try to,
I won't point fingers. I did that.
I got up the next morning, and I didn't want to get up. My mom came and got me. She was like, get on up. She was like, let's come in here. Let's, she was like, everything's going to work out. And I'm like, seriously? And so I'm sitting there, and I'm like, I think about halfway through the 4th round, I grabbed me a drink. And I'm like, whatever. I'm like, if something happens, it happens. And I just remember I got the call, and the coordinator called me, and he was like, oh, like, we're going to take you with our next pick. Well, I'm like, all right, cool. And so he hung the phone up, and then right after they announced the pick, the linebacker coach called me, and I just remember he got me on the phone, and he was like, hey, he was like, oh, so you're excited to be an Atlanta Falcon? And to the first words out of my mouth was like, no. And I was like,
you said no?
I said, no, I'm not excited. He's like, what do you mean? He's like, why was there? I said, do you see what round it is? And like, I don't know why I said it. I was upset. I was just like, I was like, you see what round it is? And he was like, nah. He was like, understand. He was like, just come in and work hard and kind of prove everybody wrong. And I was like, yeah. I said, that's exactly what I'm going to do. So.
Great draft day story right there. And yes, you did prove all those cats wrong, man. 9-year NFL career, Super Bowl champ. But transition to the NFL, I mean, you had all the tools. What would you say some of the biggest transitions from college to pro ball are?
I feel like for a lot of like, I can't speak for most people, but I know for some people, just the size, the speed of the game is different. And even when it comes to like learning playbooks and stuff like that, like learning playbooks actually I felt it was easier And when I got to the NFL than it was in college. At Southern Miss, we had this huge playbook, and it was like so many different plays and packages. And so by the time I got to the league, it was like, I mean, they give you a big playbook, but we only take a small little bit into every week. And so I was just like, this actually isn't that bad at all. And so, it's kind of one of those things like it is a transition. Like, like you said, like you go from college to being one of the few outstanding players on your team to playing against every outstanding player from every team, you know what I mean? And so that was definitely an adjustment.
During your run with the Atlanta Falcons, you want to be a key starter for them too. And there's going to be a lot of Saints fans watching this. The Southern Miss fans, most of them, a lot of them are Saints fans. And your first start was against the Saints early in your career, very early in your career. How is that starting against the Saints? And it's a rivalry in that rivalry game.
Man, so it was funny. So going into that game, I was a backup at weak side linebacker. And so we had our middle linebacker got hurt. And so coach was like, I remember he called me that next Monday. He's like, Boley, he's like, we're going to ask you to step up and start this week. So I'm over here like, all right, they're going to need move Keeps to the middle. I'm going to move in this weak side. I'm ready. Nah, he's like, but we're going to ask you to move to strong side. I was like, what? I hadn't played that this whole camp or anything. And so, getting moved over there. But so I was a little nervous going into the game just because I'm like, dude, this is next level. First start. And then, that was the year of Katrina. So we actually played in San Antonio. And man, I don't know. I just went out. I just remember I had a pretty decent game. I remember I caused the fumble, blocked the field goal. They got ran back right before halftime. And so that, and obviously, being a Southern Miss, we get a lot of guys that are from Louisiana in general, especially from the New Orleans area. So just for me, that held a little something extra for me. But man, that rivalry was deep, man. It was deep. Like I remember when the year after Katrina happened, with Sean Payton's first year, I was there when the block happened, and oh man.
I was going to ask you, but I was at that game, and I'm a New Orleanian.
I've still never been in a stadium that loud as when that moment happened, and I was actually on that punt team. They got that the punt got blocked. And I remember I sat back, I did my block, and then I hear that double thump. And I just turned around, and when I turned around, he's like diving on the ball in the end zone. I'm just like, and just that, like you hear that saying, they say not to get discouraged, but it was that moment I was like, yeah, this is not going to be a good game.
Mike, I was cheering for you. I was in the arena. I was in the dome that night, but I mean, I'm a Who Dat guy. Come on now. But I was cheering for you, Mike. It was a big night for New Orleans. It was a bit tough to pull that one out.
I felt personally like I felt that I had a good game that game, but just overall, oh man, we got and even just throughout my career, like just playing against New Orleans in general, never had good success when I was in Atlanta. I mean, I think we beat them a couple times, but my first couple of years we beat them a couple of times, and then after that it was a mess, and then. I think we played them two times when I was in New York. We went to New Orleans. I was hurt both times, and we got blew out in New Orleans. And I was in coach. They come back and look at me like, "Why you got to be hurt?" I'm like, "Look, I don't know what happened. I think I had a pulled hamstring both times."
Oh man! But you had an incredible run, and you just transitioned to New York for me. 4-year run with Atlanta, and you became one of the hottest free agents right after that run. And New York offered you a ton of money to come up to the big city. So how was that transition into that market, New York, being under the microscope, playing football for the Giants, man? Some people can handle it, some people can't. You did. You had a great run. But how is that, man, being in New York?
It's different because, they're like the New York media market is crazy. I'm used to so in Atlanta, the amount of media that we have in the locker room after a game is a lot. New York had that after a regular practice day. I come in after one of the first practice. I'm like, dang, this is a lot of media. Like, did something happen? And so to have that, to be in that market, like you said, like New York is either they love you or they hate you. There's no in between. Like they want you to win and they want you to win now. And so like I realized early on, like if you're not winning, they will boo you, they will talk trash to you. These are your own fans, and it's like, wait a minute, I'm on your team. But it was no, it was a great place to play, especially when you're winning. They love you, and they will treat you as such. So,
and they loved you in 2012, where you guys had one of the most magical playoff runs I've ever seen. You finished 9-7 in the regular season, entered the playoffs as a wild card. Wound up going to the Super Bowl. Before we get to the Super Bowl, man, that run in the playoffs, coming as a 9-7 team, that's an uphill fight. How was that run? Walk me through that.
Man, it was great. Like, so we had an up and down regular season, and I just remember we were going into the Jets game and we were 7-7, and we had a team meeting, and coaches started talking, and we had one of the guys, one of the players stood up in the meeting. He was like, was toward the end. He was like, look, he's like, I'm just going to be honest. He was like, F what these coaches are talking about. He was like, this is about us. Like the players, he was like, if we can't do what we need to do, he was like, it's above the X's and O's. Like, we have not been, executing the way we needed to on every phase of the game. And so it was that moment where like, we need a conscious effort for us as players that we need to be all in. And like, that was our slogan going, during that run was, we need to be all in order for us to get to where we want to be. And that's what we did. And everybody bought into what we were trying to do. Like it wasn't, like I can speak for us on defense. Like if the calls weren't what we wanted to, I know for myself, I had free range. I would change it. It wasn't like, I'm going to help us get in the best position to win the game and to make plays. And that's what we did.
Yeah, I read a lot on you too, man. We'll get back to that little run right there. But man, you were kind of a quarterback, a leader, besides being this is complete package linebacker, man. How would that feel being in kind of a leadership role and people looking up to you in the NFL? I mean, geez, man, that had to be kind of cool.
Nah, it was cool. So I was, I was always kind of, I didn't really say a lot, early in my career. And then when I first got to New York, Antonio Pierce was a middle linebacker. And man, like to that point, like it was nothing against. So I played with Keith Brooking, fantastic linebacker in Atlanta. Nothing against him, but when I played with Antonio, I had never seen a linebacker outside of, you see Ray Lewis on TV and stuff like that. But Antonio commanded the defense. And so it was a different kind of leadership type thing that he had. And so he got hurt toward halfway through the year. And I ended up going into his spot, making the huddle calls and, being that middle linebacker on third down and stuff. And I just remember one day at practice, like I didn't say something. There was something that had I been saying. He kind of pulled me to the side and he like grilled me out. And he's like, no, this is your defense. Like, you need to do this. He was like, if something ain't right, he was like, what's going on, change it. He's like, I don't care what coach says. He was like, it's your defense. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. And so, that kind of helped me kind of be like, all right, this is the role that I need to play in order for us to get where we want to get.
Yeah, and that kind of message leadership you have, that kind of grit, that Southern Miss grit, that you guys run that magical run in the playoffs all the way to the Super Bowl from 9-7. And how did that feel from Elkmont High School? Now I'm in the Super Bowl, just walking in that stadium before we get to kind of the final result. Did you soak in the week, the moment? I mean, what's that like?
I was like, I remember I actually went and bought a video camera, and I was like, I remember like, because I didn't even want it on my phone. Like I had a handheld, I had a video camera, and I'm like, just throughout the week, just taking videos, taking pictures. Even if I was just like sitting in the training room, getting iced or anything like that, just kind of soaking in those moments. Like, my family came, my parents and my brother, like my older brother. So my older brother is the reason I got into football. And so to have him there and just being able to like walk the streets with him, just talk to him leading up to the game. And man, like that was big for me. And then, like you said, the game happened, and that was, you can't, that's one of those feelings you can't put into words. Like, it's because it's rare. There's plenty of guys who, Hall of Famers who played the game, who never won a Super Bowl. They've got, Pro Bowls and All Pro and all that, but no ring. And to me, like that ring is what matters.
Yeah, you're truly immortalized with a Super Bowl ring. And what makes it even cooler for you, you beat one of the ultimate franchises out there, Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. Does that make it a little more special knowing you got the best of Brady in that crew?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Especially because it was kind of like, a lot of people looked at it as like, since the Giants beat them in 07, they're like, oh, you know what? Maybe this is time for New England to get their revenge. But I was like, nah, I can't, I'm like, I made it here. I can't, because actually that year, that was only my second time actually been in the playoffs. That was my 7th year. Second time going to the playoffs. First time going to the playoffs was my 4th year, and I was in Atlanta, and we lost in the first round to the Cardinals. And then so it took me 3 years later to actually make it back. And then that was my first win in the playoffs. So it was like, you know what? Like I'm here now. Like we can't give this up.
Yeah, and just a memorable run for you right there too, and with the Super Bowl win, and went to Cincinnati for your final year, and just kind of wrapping an unbelievable football career up. I mean, at that point when you're like, I'm in Cincy, this is it, man. It looks like football is ending. Looking back at your career, man, what were you thinking? Like this is it.
I mean, well, even in Cincy, I still wanted to play after I left Cincy, but it just came upon, I didn't see the point of putting my body through all the work. I was still working out twice a day, and it just got to the point I was like, you know what? I don't want to keep waiting. So I was like, if I don't hear from a team before the off-season program starts, I'm like, it ain't worth it. I'm like, I don't want to keep putting my body through this and then, not knowing if I'm going to hear from anybody. But looking back, man, it was a great ride, just from where I started, playing ball when I was 7 years old to, that was a dream of mine when I was young. So to actually, fulfill that dream and make it to that level and actually succeed at that level, man, I couldn't have asked for a better ending.
Yeah, what an incredible ride. What's funny with timing in life, too, it seems like Southern Miss was just waiting to put you in the Hall of Fame. So 2013, you're finished. Call comes from Southern Miss to get in the Hall of Fame in 2014. So how'd that feel, man, to be immortalized in the Southern Miss Hall of Fame also, on top of being a Super Bowl champ?
That was great, man. I couldn't, that was a wonderful experience, to be there for that. And, just so my son, one of my sons lived in, still lived in Hattiesburg, went to Oak Grove. And so, when I came in and, obviously I brought him with me to the ceremony, and I just remember I was like, I think we were at the ceremony. He's like, Dad, he was like, I didn't know you were that big of a deal at Southern Miss. I'm like, what, son? I'm like, my picture's in the stadium. What do you mean? He's like, yeah, but I just didn't know it was like that big of a deal. I was like, yeah, son, I was.
What's funny, Rod Davis made me laugh. He tells his players and his kids sometimes, you don't believe me, Google me. You can start doing that and Google me if you don't believe it. Right. Michael Boley's a big deal.
Yeah, so
and speaking of which, I should have done this earlier, but your career stats, man, I should have read this, but there's big rationale why Michael Boley was in the Southern Miss Hall of Fame. It is over 400 career tackles, 56 tackles for loss, 28 sacks. When you finish, that was second most in Southern Miss history. I mean, those stats, man, does that blow your mind? Dude, I played middle linebacker. You getting that many sacks, and it's crazy.
Nah, it was crazy because like I didn't, because like you said, you mentioned earlier, Rod was phenomenal. So I thought like putting up numbers like that was what every linebacker did. Then I And I slowly realized, so my junior year, I think, kind of over halfway through the year, I was up near the top of like in the nation when it came to tackles. And I was just like, dang, like, because like I was, top of the ride, like we were literally like after that Monday after every game, really checking the stats, seeing what our stats are. And I'm over here like, dang, like those are some pretty good stats. And then after, once toward the, at the end of my senior year, I was looking back at career stats like, wow, like I really did that.
Heck yeah, you're top 10, top 5. I mean, what's around 100 years of Southern Miss football? Look at the stats, people. Michael Boley's on all of them just about. And 151
toward the end of my senior year, because I remember AD had the most sacks, right?
Yeah, you're second behind AD, but he played in, man. You were allowed.
So about halfway through my senior year, I was counting. I was like, okay, if I get this many sacks, like I can pass AD. And I was like, yeah, I came up a little short, but I was gunning for it.
Oh man, 1-2 on that list though. AD's a Super Bowl champ. Michael Boley's a Super Bowl champ, man. That's impressive crew right there. So, hey, Mike, definitely want to give you the honor and privilege, maybe some family updates, man, and things going on in that realm.
Oh, family? Oh man. So I have 8 kids. I do have to say I didn't pay much attention to Southern Miss football last year because I got a son that plays ball at Virginia. He's going into his true sophomore year at Virginia, starting O-lineman, and so that's kind of where my focus is being. Sorry, Southern Miss fans, I will try to tune in when I get a chance, but the kids come first. But yeah, man. Other than that, I got a son who's going in his senior year of high school, playing basketball over in Georgia. I've got 5-year-old twins now, just started school. So yeah, man, just living the life right now.
Ooh, dad life. And real quick, how is that being a dad watching your son play college football?
Man, it's great. His first game that I went to see him play, I was sitting in the stands and I'm thinking in my head, like, damn, this must be how my parents felt watching me play for the first time. Like, this is awesome. Like, I'm not even really paying attention to much else on the game. I'm like, I'm watching him. So yeah, man, just being that and seeing your kids do something that they love to do. That's awesome, man.
Oh, what incredible vibes right there from a dad. And you know what I think would be great right now, Mike? People seeing you, maybe some people ain't seeing you a little bit. A message to the Southern Miss fans from the great Michael Boley.
Oh man, to the fans, you know what I can say? Don't stop supporting. A lot of the guys probably won't say it, but man, they love it when you guys show up to the Rock and show out. Being there week in, week out, cheering them on. Getting behind them. As players, we feed off that. A lot of us won't say it, but man, coming into that, especially at the Rock, coming in there and seeing that black and gold all across the stadium, people cheering for us, cheering on our team, win, lose, or draw. We love it.
Yeah, feeding off the crowd. Bring it to the Rock this year for sure. And just to kind of close things up here, you asked me the most complete linebacker in Southern Miss football history. I'm talking to him right now. It's Michael Boley, one of the greatest football players Southern Miss ever had. It's been an honor to have you on today, Mike.
All right, man. Hey, man, I appreciate you having me on, man. It's been a pleasure, man.
Heck yeah, and I think it'd be great to close the show with Michael Boley and myself giving the Southern Miss fans a big Southern Miss.
To the top.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Nasty Bunch legend Michael Boley. Well, that's it for another edition of Anyone, Anywhere, Anytime. And if you are enjoying this show, I'm going to ask you to do something absolutely free and easy to do, and that's help spread the word of the show. Retweet this on Twitter, repost this on Instagram and Facebook if you're enjoying it, and tell your friends and family about the show. And don't forget to subscribe. So until next time, as always, it's Southern Miss to the top.